Branding is not going to be a method of hypnotism that once somebody sees a very beautifully done brand scheme, they will trust it blindly. No, they're not going to come to you a second time. Digital marketing is a lot more easy to access, primarily because you can select a very small group of people to advertise to, and therefore you're going to be billed, or you'll pay for just that smaller group. With digital marketing, you're able to serve your advertisements right to their phone when you know that they're on the phone. It's on when somebody is scrolling through social media. At that time, because they're at leisure, they're trying to relax, they're more open to digesting that advertisement.
How will you designing a brand for किराना store? Hello everyone, welcome on Think8 again, and आज के हमारे guest हैं हर्ष दागा. He is business director and co-founder of Grapdes. Hi Harsh, welcome to our show Think8.
Very, very happy to be here. First of all, we're called Grapdes. It's a very, very common mistake that a lot of our contacts do, which is to call it grapes, call it a lot of different things, but we're called Grapdes.
Okay.
And the name is actually from graphic and design, which is what we started out with in 2018. But today we're much bigger, doing a lot of other things, but our origin story remains the same. So that continues to be our name. And at Grapdes, what we do is we offer brand consulting services to our client partners. We want to be a full service consulting firm for whatever business requirements that they might have. And today we're specializing in brand communications and brand marketing. So that's really our forte and the kind of work that we do.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. So, what all is exactly included in brand consulting and brand marketing? Is it establishing a brand or taking up the already established brands?
So, branding as a field is extremely wide, right? So, it's a very, very, very wide umbrella term for a lot of different activities. But at the core of it, what a brand is an emotion, right? It is what, when we think of, say, a mobile phone connection, the first name that comes to your mind is a brand, right? It's not really a logo, it's not really a name, it's not really a color, but it's the sense of emotional recall that one has when they think about a brand. So when it comes to the kind of work that we do, we work with startups who are just an idea. We also work with enterprise clientele who want to maybe set up a new business vertical, or who want to grow and enhance the brand recognition that they have. So branding is a wide umbrella term to generate that natural emotional feeling that consumers should have whenever they think about a particular segment, or think about a need in their life or a desire in their life. So that's what branding is.
Okay, great. So, which kind of business would really need brand building?
As we stand today, India as a growing market, and just the market at large in the world, I think every single business entity needs branding. And it's not just restricted to businesses. I think even as people, we need a lot of brand building, because if we want the community at large to look up to us, to value what we say, to believe in what we say, it's extremely important that they have a sense of faith, and it's extremely important that they automatically have this feeling that if so and so person or so and so organization is saying something, it must be right.
Okay.
So in that sense, even if one is looking to start something which would be doing maybe revenues less than a 5 lakh figure in Indian rupees, or if one is looking to create something which might be doing business in crores, both of them require branding. That is because branding is really that one thing that gives a business or a person an edge over their next best competitor. Right?
Okay.
So let's take an example, right? Why is it that we believe that Bisleri makes good water, right? Versus a local brand in whichever city that we're in? Why is it that we automatically trust Bisleri, right? We have never visited the plant.
Right.
We have probably never even watched a video on YouTube of how Bisleri makes its water. We don't know what each of those certifications on their label means. But it's just that emotion that, oh, if Bisleri is making something, I'm going to buy it because it's of good quality. So much so that branding can go as far as convincing you to pick up a packet of oats made by a brand that is primarily operating and making cooking oil. So I'm referring to Saffola. So Saffola has come up with a line of masala oats.
Right.
And oats in general is marketed as something which is a healthy breakfast. It's high in fiber, high in nutrition. And on the other side, you have cooking oil, which doctors and scientists all over ask us to avoid because it is supposed to be unhealthy. It's not good for the heart. It might cause heart issues later in life, etc. But Saffola is launching and marketing under its same name a packet of oats.
Right.
So that's the power that a brand can have, that even though you're selling something which is completely against nutrition in the general public's opinion, it's still something that can be sold. So that is why even as a small business, I think branding is really important for you to stand out from the next best competitor, of ensuring that you have that one edge, because of which if there are two options that a consumer has, they'll come to you instead of going to the other person that's doing the same thing or selling the same product that you are.
Okay. So maybe branding just means building trust.
Sure, branding is like I said, right? It's that emotion which makes somebody believe. So one can definitely say that it's about building trust, or it can be about, before you start to build trust, I think introduction is also very important. Right?
Okay.
How does a consumer recognize that you even offer something that they need? Right? So I think branding means different things at different stages of a business's life journey. Right? So when they start out, it's about creating an identity to at least show to the world at large that they exist, that their products exist. But at a time when they're scaling up, at a time when they're trying to do bigger things, I think building trust is a good point, because that is when you can be sure that people who are already purchasing things from you want to come back, and people who haven't purchased things from you yet come to you simply because their friend or their family member purchased something from you. Right? So branding is basically consistently creating that sense of recall in the minds of the consumer. It could be about first launching the identity, and then it could be about building the trust, and then it could be about retaining the trust towards
Okay.
the later years of a business's life cycle.
Okay, nice. So when I, as a common layman, when I think about a brand, I immediately would be thinking about a product associated with that particular brand. Okay. And when I see that product and a competitor's product, it will attract me because of its packaging or because of its design as well. Okay. So how important is product design and is it different from branding?
So packaging design or product design. So packaging is basically what you see on the outside of a product, and the product design is basically the physical shape and size of the product itself.
Right.
For example, let's take this glass. The shape of this glass is the product design, and the box that it probably came along with is the packaging design. All of these things are a part or a small subset of what branding means. Right?
Okay.
So, for example, if a business deals with physical goods, then to them, branding is good packaging. That's the most important touch point of their business. When somebody takes up the box which contains the glass, then how does that box look like? Does it feel like it's a good quality box? And there's no right answer. It's not that the box has to feel premium, right? If especially you're selling to an income class which is not looking to buy premium products, then branding does not mean you have to look all sophisticated and anglicized, right? You can even have the packaging done in, the copywriting is done in Hindi, and the packaging can be of a certain material which doesn't feel premium, but it still feels like it's of good quality. Because branding is about being able to communicate with the target audience that you want to attract, right? So if I'm selling an extremely premium watch from Switzerland, then the kind of communication, the kind of packaging, the kind of logo that the brand has, all of them have to appeal to that kind of an income class, that kind of a subset of our society that really is already aware of how a Swiss watch brand looks like. But if I have to deal with an income class which is really trying super hard to make their ends meet, but it's not that they don't want good things in life as well, they do. But you can't really be selling an expensive something or an expensive looking something also to them, right? If your price point is something that is affordable, then you have to ensure that the kind of branding that you do around that product also feels affordable.
Oh.
Because it will create a mismatch when, say, somebody looks at just yesterday I had a meeting with somebody who was talking about how the kind of services that they sell, so they're an interior design company, and the kind of services that they sell are not very expensive. for a 2 BHK, of course, this is for the middle class, but for a 2 BHK, they're able to execute a good piece of work for sub 6 lakh figure. Right? But the kind of store that they've put together, the experience center that they've put together, they believe is probably a little too sophisticated and a little too premium, which is resulting in their actual target audience not even considering walking in, because they already have this preconceived notion looking in the space that it's probably very expensive. Right. And therefore they become conscious that because it looks expensive, it probably is expensive, and therefore this is not my place, let me go elsewhere. So it's about very scientifically analyzing what is the target audience going to seek, and then accordingly creating an identity around that concept, and then putting it out to the market, and then listening to customer feedback and constantly optimizing. So the meeting that I had yesterday was basically that optimization stage. Okay. That now that they've made a mistake, right? They obviously did not intend to do it, but once it goes out there, they realize that there is a certain issue with it. It's about taking that feedback, figuring out what are the changes that should be done, and then redoing it and going back into the market again, right? Because for a business, one small mistake can't really be an impediment, right? Branding is also a lot of times, it's a bunch of hits and misses. It's not that everything can be done properly. Even if you have the best agency with you, it's not that everything will go right, because the end goal is for our consumers and customers to be happy. And if that has to be achieved, of course, one makes certain assumptions, and with good expertise, those assumptions are that much better. But they're assumptions at the end of the day, right? So only when you go into the market, you hear the feedback, you hear comments on what your price point is. People might believe that you're priced too much for what you're selling, or the feedback could be that you're actually too cheap for the kind of stuff that you're doing. Both of these things are a problem, because you have to hit that sweet spot with regards to what you want people to perceive your brand as, how is it that they perceive you instead, and what is the goal or the future of the business that one's looking for themselves, right? Because if one is looking to play the volume game, then naturally they have to create a brand which attracts the masses so that they can have as many customers as physically possible. But there are organizations that really don't want to work with like tens of thousands of people, right? They really want those select 100 to 200 to 500 people with which they're able to achieve the same revenue figure. So depending on what the business plan looks like, the kind of customers we want to attract, we have to create an identity, shape it up, and go to market with it, so that we get the right kind of people walking to us, the right kind of people approach us, right?
How did you make it happen? Is it just based on your website, or
so
what
it's
makes
not just the website. I think it's also a lot to do with the kind of work and the kind of conversation that one has. I think a very ignored aspect of branding is ambassadorship, right? Which is what, so for example, at GrabDay, I manage the business development from the front lines, right? So I'm usually the first person, along with, of course, my wonderful colleagues on the business team. We're usually the first people that a potential client partner speaks with, interacts with. So what is it that we say to them that makes them believe that we're even worth a second conversation, right? Because a lot of times it's even likely that, okay, the website looks great, the project portfolio looks great, but the person who spoke to you did not really, feel one with the things that you saw online, right? So a very ignored aspect of it is training teams to have conversations. For example, if you walk into a Starbucks, right? Even if they're making their coffees, or the baristas are making their coffees, or they're doing billing, taking payments from customers, they still look towards the door and say hi, welcome, right? And that immediately creates a sense of warmth, right? You actually feel welcome, even if they're just doing what they're told and they're sticking to a script. It still makes a very, very big difference, because you walk into a different kind of a cafe, that's probably not how you are welcomed, right? And therefore it immediately stands out, and maybe you're pleasantly surprised that, oh, they were doing something, they were fully immersed in making a coffee, but yet they looked up, and maybe they did not make eye contact, but at least they look towards you and say hi, welcome to Starbucks, right? And that's the kind of difference that branding can make, if you actually train your staff, train your frontline workers with information that they have to talk about, with the kind of questions and answers that have to be engaged in, so that when a potential customer walks to you, they get the same brand experience as they might have had on your product packaging, on your website, on your social media, because everything has to be consistent.
so basically every first interaction with customer will be a part of branding?
100%. I think branding is not something that determines a business's success in totality. We get a lot of inquiries coming to us which say that we want a logo design, great, and we try to ask them more in terms of what their expectations might be like, and their immediate response is we want something as good as an apple. The mistake that we believe that they're making in approaching this is kind of connecting the success of Apple as a company to their logo, right? Branding is really to attract somebody for the first time. Branding is really to get your foot into the doors that you probably could not have before. But it's not what determines the success or complete success of a business, right? After one sees the Apple branding and they pick up a phone of theirs and they start using it, if the experience on that phone is not good, or if the post sale service of that device is not good, or if the security of that phone is not good, nobody is really going to be talking positively about Apple, or nobody is really going to be approaching Apple the next time they want to buy a gadget. Could be a computer, could be an iPad, right? So branding is really about.
In fact, that same Apple which people look like this, they'll be like, no, this I don't want.
Exactly. So branding is about introducing your brand positively on every single touch point possible. Then thereafter, the actual product or the actual service needs to do the talking. Branding is not going to be a method of hypnotism that once somebody sees a very beautifully done brand scheme, they will trust it blindly. No, they will trust it blindly maybe for the first time. But once they utilize what you're offering and consume it and have a sense of dissatisfaction, they're not going to come to you a second time, right? And all of the investment and money that you've poured into advertising, poured into brand building, hiring a brand ambassador is all going to go waste because the actual core of that business is not really sustainable in nature. So branding is really that skin that one puts on top of the business, like a gift wrapper, to make it attractive. So when I give you a gift, I wrap it nicely. There's a very beautiful bow on top of it, a wonderful card along with it. You love it. But once you start opening it and inside you just find a rock, you're not going to be happy. So even though your initial sense was that of happiness and that of, great joy, once you actually go into the depths of it, you're
You'll
not
be
happy.
shocked.
And therefore, the next time you see a gift wrapper like that, you'll want to run away from it because you know that the experience you had the last time was not really positive, and therefore there is no reason for you to think of it differently. Which is where rebrandings become very important. A lot of companies which are maybe loss making or have had like some terrible press around them in the recent years. There's a very popular telecom company in India. There's a popular banking company in India which have gone through rebrands to ensure that the public perception which has been built over time, which might be negative in nature, is transformed into something that is positive, right? So a rebranding can really achieve that, but then again, it becomes a vicious cycle because as long as you don't change the core of it, if the quality of your internet speeds is not good, if the quality of your banking services is not good, a new logo or a new color is not really going to be doing much to change that in the long term. Of course, in the short term, people will be talking about it. Same is the case with the airline, which is rebranded recently, right? Of course,
you can name the brands. It's okay.
Sure,
It's all in public.
There is a lot of optimism around it, and of course, the rebrand might be a success, but it will be deemed a success as long as the services are good. If the services are bad, it will be deemed a failure because people will say that you spent so much money or invested so much money into rebranding and changing all your signages, changing the livery of all of your airplanes, but on the inside, the kind of crew members that are there, the kind of people who are actually rendering that service,
Delay.
or the on-time performance, very rightly, right? So on-time performance of the airplanes, those are the things which really matter and create the brand appeal. So one quick, sort of insight and advice even that we have for smaller businesses who might not have the budgets to invest in like, extensive branding processes, is that it's okay for you to not have the most fancy logo, or it's okay for you to not have the most colorful bespoke packaging, as long as the actual product or the service that you're selling is really good. Even something similar, something piecemeal is also okay to launch yourself. So you don't have to hold yourself back until you find the best agency or the best freelancer to build your brand identity. You can really have something simple, as long as it's consistent all across touch points. That's all is the most important thing. go to market, start making some revenue, come back into it, and then of course, see, there is always going to be time and place for improvements, right? Nobody is perfect. I think like even at Grabday right now, we're currently in the process of ideating a visual rebrand for us. So potentially the logo might change, the design of the website might change, and there is always going to be room for improvement, right? Because I think what we thought of ourselves about 6 years back is not how we see ourselves today and for the future, right? And that is the case with every single business, right? As you grow, as the kind of industry growth that is seen, you automatically have to transform yourself and align yourself with the expectations of the target audience at large. So there's always going to be room to do that, but
Even big successful brands like Twitter, Instagram, Google, even they have changed their logos.
absolutely, absolutely, and that is really how the way things work, right? For example, the way we like to do our hair maybe 10 years back is not the way we do our hair today, right? And that's exactly what like physical or visual branding is about as well, which is that you have to stay relevant, you have to stay one with the kind of trends which are there today, which is not to say that you create something which is extremely transient in nature. It has to be long lasting, it has to be something which can define you for a much longer period of time. But with that said, I think yes, there is always room for improvement. No matter what kind of a company you are, no matter how big you are, there's always going to be some scope for improvement. So even if you've done like a very recent sort of rebranding maybe 2 years ago, a complete rebranding might not be necessary today. But yes, of course, minor tweaks and refreshes in terms of optimizing the color better, or selecting a better type kit. For example, if people have been paying attention, I think Instagram very recently, everything in their brand language is the same. Same is the case with their app as well. Of course, they keep optimizing their UX a little bit every now and then, but their font has changed. If you pay attention, they have a very different typeface today that has been incorporated, I believe, across all Meta products. But Instagram, of course, is their most prominent social media network, at least in India today. So they've changed their font, and that is coming from inside that, okay, maybe this might help in communicating better, right? People might pay more attention to this typeface because it's different from maybe what's there on WhatsApp or what's there on X or what's there on Pinterest, because these are all leading social media platforms. So that's basically how branding works. It's a very very wide term, and once say a brand identity is established, there's of course going to be like digital marketing, which is another big thing, which is a lot of our client partners are interested in. It's obviously bringing in a lot of results as well, primarily because it makes the play field very very open and democratic. Because with television advertisements or print advertisements, etc., you need a network, right? You need to know how to approach a network to publish an advertisement in the first place. You need to have a lot of investment, right? Because a television commercial can cost you basically anything, depending on when you're advertising, right? If it's a prime time advertisement, it can cost a certain thing. If it's happening in the midnight, it can cost a certain thing. But no matter when you do it, it's super expensive. That's the advantage with digital marketing, is that it makes it extremely affordable even for the smallest of businesses to get the word out there, to get in more inorganic growth to their businesses.
How affordable exactly is digital marketing? And before that, what exactly is digital marketing?
So marketing is basically generating a a market for yourself, right? So just building a market, enhancing that market, generating more traffic is basically what marketing is. And digital marketing, as the name suggests, is basically the art of doing so online, right? You might be selling a product which is physical in nature. It might not even be available on e-commerce, and that's fine. It might just be available at stores. But still, what digital marketing helps one do is achieve recognition or interest in that product or that service online, so that the next time a prospective customer needs that kind of a product or service, you are the first people that they think about.
So, is it like digital marketing is limited to social marketing on social media?
Sure, I would say so, because see, digital is everything that is online. I think maybe let's not limit it to social media, but yes, it is everything that is online. And as we use the internet today, I think for all of us, social media is the biggest sort of digital medium that we consume. Of course, you also have like digital newspapers, you also have digital blog sites, you also have YouTube. Some people respect YouTube as a social media platform. Some people just see it as a repository of like long form videos. But everything that is online is basically what comes under digital marketing. So one could argue that social media management or social media marketing is actually a subset of digital marketing, because digital marketing is a little bit more wider, because it includes anything and everything that is accessible through a device. Could be your phone, could be your tablet, could be your computer, but anything that is accessed through there is basically what digital marketing is.
Okay. So, let's say I'm a very, very small business, and let's say I'm a cloud kitchen. Okay. And I want to start, I've not started it yet. So, since my entire function is cloud, it's online only. So, and I, let's say I don't want to invest much. So, how and where can I start doing digital marketing?
It's a very good question. I think like for different businesses, it really depends on the industry that you're operating under, right? I'll give you a good example, and I think Cloud Kitchen just makes it super easy for me to explain it. Is that your market is on a delivery application, right? It could be a Swiggy, it could be a Zomato, it could be any of these apps which are out there right now. So your digital marketing activity has to happen on this platform, right? Because you already have a sizable number of people who visit these apps, and more often than not are looking for something new, right? Of course, all of us have our favorites, and every time we're feeling a little bit low or a little excited, we know exactly what we want to have to celebrate or to feel sad. But there is that space in between, which is where you're confused and you're potentially open to ordering something new, right? So both of these platforms that I just mentioned offer opportunities to their restaurant partners to advertise on the platform itself. So how it would work is, so for example, you feel like having a shawarma, right? So you will just naturally write a shawarma, unless you know a place that sells good shawarma. You will write shawarma. So then what happens is the first 2-3 results which come up are actually promoted.
Oh.
Right. So how is it promoted? Is that the restaurant partner is probably paying Swiggy or Zomato to place the name of their restaurant on top of everybody else, right? So even though probably like the fourth name, which is actually the number one in terms of the number of orders or the reviews that people have given it, but the very first name that you actually do end up seeing is something which is inorganic, right? So this is also digital marketing, because like I told you, the qualification is that it has to be accessed through a device on the internet. And that's exactly what we're doing while we're on Swiggy. The first name that we see. So here is where it becomes important to have good branding, because now you've gotten the hook, you've laid the hook, and somebody's caught it, and they're going to click on it, right? What might they do, right? So if potentially this is on Zomato and you're a cloud kitchen, they go into it and they see the menu, they see the packaging of the food products, right? They see the logo itself, right? Does it excite the customer in the moment, right? Because the attention span, and this is a lot of research which is out there, we've also been analyzing it very frequently, is that it's barely 2 to 3 seconds that somebody would spend on something new, right? So if within those 2 to 3 seconds you're not able to capture attention and retain them, they're going to get out and go to the next option that was available, option number 2, and then option number 3. So digital marketing is to lay down the hook and to get somebody interested in you. A brand supports that attention and ensures that they retain the attention. And then the core of the business, which in the case of a cloud kitchen would be a very interesting cuisine, or excellent reviews, because that comes from the kind of food that you've already sold to customers in the past, will actually entice the customer to take a leap of faith. It is a leap of faith, no doubt, right? But take a leap of faith to order from you. And then there you have the conversion, which is that digital marketing also makes it easy for you to measure that, okay, if you paid about 1,000 rupees to Swiggy for placing that ad on top, which resulted in one click, so your cost of acquisition of that particular customer becomes roughly about 1,000 rupees, plus whatever other sort of marketing team that you might have empaneled, or if you have invested in graphic design, etc., etc. So roughly, let's call it 1,000 rupees, and that customer happened to place an order of maybe 2,000 rupees. So then your cost of acquisition becomes 1,000 plus whatever amount of money that you had to spend in obviously giving a commission to the platform over and above what you paid for the advertisement, plus the cost of production, plus labor, electricity, etc. And then that gives you maybe a margin. But this one time this cost of acquisition happens, the next time if your food was actually good, the customer will just look for you by name. in which case you don't need to advertise, because the moment somebody looks for you by name, and as long as that name is unique and is probably trademarked, you will automatically be the first name that comes up, right? And the subsequent orders will then get rid of this cost of acquisition, and then whatever you have to pay as commission plus cost of production, etc., becomes the cost that one has to bear. So that's the advantage of digital marketing, is that you actually serve your advertisements and present yourself right where the customer is interested. That's the difference between, say, a mainline ad campaign, say something on a television, right? So you're watching the IPL, there's your favorite cricketer batting, and then very randomly there's a panel on the side and on the left, which has an ad, right? Maybe they hit a four and it says hit a four like something, right? Whatever their slogan is at the time being. That is not really very effective, because in that time, that person was actually just interested in watching the match, right? It is possible that they noticed it. It is possible that subconsciously it did register, but consciously it does not translate into sale immediately, right? Unless, of course, it's a very compelling offer. I think Cred ran an offer the last IPL, right? Which was that in the power play, if you pay your credit card bills, you become eligible for 100% cashback, right? Which will then be declared via lucky draw. So then it's time sensitive. So then naturally, and that's beautiful also, right? Because it's extremely intelligent in making people pick up their phones and pay a credit card bill at that time when a power play is usually the most exciting part of a
Right,
game.
right.
So that's a good campaign, right? Unless it's something that time sensitive, something that's made urgent, it will not necessarily convert into sales right away. But with digital marketing, you can actually categorically curate how, when, where, to whom your ad is going to be served, so that you can very immediately and directly convert that into a sale. Like I gave you the example of a Swiggy or a Zomato ad, where the customer is already ready to buy, right? They are not worried about wanting to spend 1,000, 2,000 rupees on ordering food, because today they're not in the mood to cook, or they're unable to cook, whatever is the case might be, right? So that is the beauty of digital marketing, that you can very specifically, if you just want to serve ads in a particular city of the country, you can do that. If you want to serve ads in the entire country at large, you can also do that. But with the television campaign, you can only pick the channel and the time slot. Now, no matter where that person's watching the channel, that advertisement is going to be served. So it's not very targeted, and therefore it makes it that much more expensive, right? Because the television network will say that, hey, listen, our channel is broadcasted in all of these territories. People typically watch it for so much time every single day. And therefore, even if you only want to present yourself, say maybe in Chennai, we will still charge you for every single city that has the broadcast of that channel.
Are you sure about it?
Absolutely. With television channels, that's the problem, right? Because you can't control the delivery of that channel.
No, because I've seen different, like same television channel, different areas. They will be in different languages. So, which means that they have the capacity to cater different audiences.
With national television, that's not the case, right? For example, a Star Plus. Let's take the example of a Star Plus. What you see on Star Plus in Kanyakumari is the same Star Plus that comes in the northernmost part of Jammu and Kashmir. There is no change whatsoever. If there are variations, then they will have a separate sub-channel. For example, Star has a Star Vijay in Tamil Nadu, which purely telecasts Tamil content, and then therefore obviously all the ads, etc., are telecasted in Tamil, shot and filmed, everything in Tamil. But similarly, they might have a version of it in West Bengal. They might have a version of it in Maharashtra. But all of these are separate channels. The main channel itself is still that same channel. In fact, if you watch Star Vijay in West Bengal or you watch Star Vijay in Punjab, you're still going to be served Tamil content only, which is the advantage of digital marketing, which is that, for example, with Jio, right? Today now Jio is the official telecaster online of the IPL. You can change your language, but what that does is it actually changes the channel itself, so to speak, right? Because when you say, I want to watch the match in Tamil, the ads thereafter will all come to you in Tamil, right? And more often than not, those ads are actually filmed and shot and filmed in Tamil as well, right? So it's not actually like just lip sync the dialogues. It's actual Tamil delivery which is happening. So that's the advantage that one gets with changing or scaling their marketing activities digitally, because you get all of these additional capabilities which legacy media still does not have. Of course, these channels are also available online now, and with the advent of generative AI, a lot of transformations are possibly happening. But as it stands today, digital marketing is a lot more easy to access, primarily because you can select a very small group of people to advertise to, and therefore you're going to be billed, or you'll pay for just that smaller group instead of having to account for the entire thing, which is why media mix is also something that we talk about it. So media mix is basically how do you want to allocate your budgets to what kind of media portals in general, right? So only the biggest of brands really go for the national television because they understand that their brand appeal. Britannia biscuits, they will want the recognition no matter where in the country somebody watches the channel. So they are the kind of people who invest in advertisements on national TV, and it also makes sense for them to do so. But as a smaller business, imagining that okay, I will publish a newspaper advertisement or I'll do a hoarding. A hoarding is still very localized. It's at a particular junction at a traffic signal, but that still is very very expensive, right? And somebody, when they're focusing on driving their vehicle, will they see the hoarding? Will they not see the hoarding? Is all like questions that they have. But with digital marketing, you're able to serve your advertisements right to their phone when you know that they're on the phone, in the sense that it doesn't just happen to show that. It's on when somebody is scrolling through social media. They're on Instagram watching reels of their favorite content creator, and the placement of the brand maybe happens in the content of that creator itself, or an ad pops up. So at that time, because they're at leisure, they're trying to relax, they're more open to digesting that advertisement, engaging with that advertisement. A lot of D2C companies today rely on something called impulse buying, right? Which is that they sell products which are not very expensive, which are also not really extremely useful, but it just looks cute. So somebody wants to buy it. It could be it could be a keychain. It could be something as small as a hair clip. It could be a bracelet. And these are something that a lot of these companies sell through the concept of impulse buying. Is that those ads will get served at a time where they know that that consumer is at rest. It's not very very personalized. That I wouldn't know that what are you doing at what time. Of course, there's a lot of conspiracy around the fact that digital advertisers know exactly what you're doing at what time. I mean, of course, it's possible. I'm not saying that there is no truth in it, but as we know today, there are a lot of security protocols which do not allow for that to happen. But in general, one does understand that what is the behavior of people belonging to a certain age category, living in a certain city, doing a certain kind of job profession. So with that, you're able to curate your ad campaigns, make it say a certain thing, make it look a certain way, and then deliver at a time where, okay, you show a very nice looking but affordable bracelet, and somebody's like, you know what, it looks nice, let me just order it. And without thinking too much about it, because there's also a lot of disposable income today, just pick it up. It's a 200 rupee product, 300 rupee product, 500 rupee product, and then just engage in something called impulse buying. So that's the advantage of digital marketing, is that you can keep it very, very targeted. And at the end of it all, the most important benefit of it is the fact that you can track it, in the sense that if you've invested, like I was giving you the example of Swiggy, if you've invested maybe 1 lakh rupees in a month to run your ad campaigns, and you've generated maybe 3 lakh rupee worth of sales, then you know that your return on ad spends, we call that the ROAS number, is at a figure of 3x, which is that the amount of money that I put in, I got 3x returns back in the form of sales. Of course, this is not a direct measure of the profits that you're having, because the cost of production, the cost of other forms of marketing, logistics are all still involved, but at least the return on ad spend is visible. So at some point, mathematically, one can calculate that, okay, if at 1 lakh I'm able to make 3 lakhs, what if I try to increase it from 1 to 2 lakh? Is it possible that I might get a 6 lakh return? And with the 6 lakh return, maybe my costs are all stopping at a 5 lakh figure, and therefore 1 lakh could just be my profit. Whereas before that, maybe 50,000 was my profit. 50,000 maybe is not sustainable for that business, but 1 lakh is. So those are the benefits and the beauties of digital marketing, where it's extremely measurable. We call it performance marketing, in fact, for the reason that you can track its performance to quantify exactly how much you've spent and how much was the return you got out of it, which you can't do with a newspaper advertisement.
Right.
With newspaper advertisement, you invest a certain lakh rupees into it.
Even for branding, like designing a logo, website, there also you cannot make a one-to-one connection.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think because it's purely a service against time. There is no way to determine if it is something that is cheap or expensive, because it's at the end of the day, it's services, right? That goes for law firms, that goes for accountants. It's a professional fees. You are paying the particular creative artist to create something, and based on their expertise or what they believe their time is worth, they're going to be charging you a certain something. But it's really about the kind of impact that it might create on your target audience that is most important. Because of course, if you're a smaller business, like I said, the strategy is that we just want to go to market with something very, very simple. It's absolutely all right to partner with somebody who's just gotten a few months of experience or a year of experience. Or if you're a really big brand, for example, Air India's rebranding was done by a global agency based in London with an office in Bombay and other cities in the world as well. And I'm sure the investment there would have been millions of pounds, right? But that is really important because, I mean, not to say that that logo could have only been created if you paid so much money. Absolutely not. I think even a student studying graphic design would be able to create something like that. But it's really about the kind of expertise that they bring in, the ancillary thoughts that they have around it, the experience that they have in working with brands in a similar space. All of those things determine the kind of fees that a particular professional or an agency will charge you. And it depends on the goals that you have. If you believe that building your brand identity is worth an X amount of figure, then that's the right price.
Okay, talking about the budget, what is the starting range for running a digital campaign?
So
If we hire an agency and if we do not hire an agency.
exactly right. So there are two components to any sort of a marketing campaign. One is what you pay for the expertise of running that campaign, and another one is what you pay for the execution or the publication of that ad campaign. Let's look at it in a legacy sense. Now, if you had to publish, I'm talking about maybe say 25 years ago today, if you had to create an ad campaign, you first had to have creative people who could conceptualize it for you, design it, write the script for it, find the right actors for it, etc. So there is that consultancy fees that one has to pay, and then thereafter to actually film the ad, what you need to pay the camera people for your equipment, to those actors, in fact, and then to publish it on the television, right? What do you pay? So there are two components to it. So if you do it yourself, naturally, just at the first point, you do save a lot of money because you're not paying a consultant. But that may be a double-edged sword, right? Because the reason why experts exist is because they know what they're doing. It's like this, right? So if you do it yourself, of course it might work, but it also might not work. So if it doesn't work, then all of the money that you've actually put in execution, it's all waste because it did not get you the results that you wanted. So by putting in a little bit more towards partnering with an expert in the space, you're able to get the full returns on the money that you're actually investing into the ad campaign, right? So in digital marketing as well, one is the management fees and another one is the ad spends that one has to make. So the ad spend goes directly to a big tech company, something like a Meta, Google, Pinterest, LinkedIn, etc. And the management fee goes towards the freelancer or the agency that is setting up and managing this ad campaign for you. So in terms of budgets, again, it's extremely open-ended, especially the first part of it is purely time. So you're going to be paying somebody for their time. Now they could think that their time is worth X rupees per hour, or it could be worth Y dollars per hour, right? So the fees of it is extremely variable. You'll find people and teams of all shapes and sizes, people who charge a retainer which is a percentage of your ad spends, or people who have a base set of a certain amount of rupees or dollars that is compulsorily to be paid, and then they will start advertising, right? So there is, again, right, it could start off from something as less as, and I'm just throwing a very random estimated number here, but it could be something as low as 5,000 rupees if it's a freelancer that you're working with, because they're only charging for themselves and they might have like 10 projects like this, and that's a sizable income for a month's expenses, right? Or you might have agencies who will say that their minimum retainer is like $10,000 per month. It really depends on whom you're talking to and what is your expectation like. And with the ad spends part of it, how these companies charge is on the basis of a cost per action. Now, what is this action? This action could be a purchase. This action could be a click. So for example, if you're simply running an ad campaign which is to make people aware about your brand, then you simply want them to click on it, right? Because you don't want them to take any other action. You just want them to click on it and read a little bit about you and then exit. So that could be an action. Or you want, on the other side of it, you want people to maybe fill out a form so that your sales team can maybe contact them later to say that, hey, you've contacted us for some service or some product. How can we help you? Like a lot of real estate companies do that because these are big ticket items. So there's a phone number published very proudly. You've got a call. It's probably even a missed call. But what happens is your number gets recorded on a database, and then somebody from the sales team will contact you with further information. or you want people to click on it, add to cart, put your sort of card UPI information and purchase the product right then and there. So depending on what the action looks like, these platforms determine what the cost per action would be. So naturally clicks are the cheapest and a purchase is the costliest because that gives in immediate benefit. Therefore, those companies want a slice of that. And a click is
There
just
is
a
one
click.
more thing called impressions.
Correct. So impressions is probably one step before a click. So an impression is nothing but how many people have seen it. That's
Okay.
basically what an impression is, right?
Okay.
This created an impression on you, therefore it's an impression. Now, one could argue that an impression is not really a real KPI because maybe you were just scrolling past it, but the system just recorded that as an impression. It's possible. A click is intent based because, of course, a click could happen by mistake, but very unlikely that it happens too many times by mistake. But an impression is something that's even though I scroll past it, it'll still record it as an impression. But it still is a important KPI. I'm not going to say that it doesn't matter at all. But I think an impression should be conjoined with another action, which could be a click, which could be a call to action in the form of contact, in the form of fill out a form, etc. So that's what an impression is. So typically for any ad campaign you launch, your impression is going to be the highest number because it's a funnel, right? So impression is at the top of it. After impressions, you'll have a click. After click, you'll have a contact form, or after contact, or alongside contact form, you might have a purchase. So that's because these are two separate things. If you're a services business, then you'll do a contact form. If you're an e-commerce D2C business, then you'll do a buy now.
What exactly is funnel?
So funnel is, I mean, just imagine like a funnel in which we pour like liquids, right? So it'll have the biggest opening on top and the smallest at the bottom. So the biggest thing is impressions. Then it further gets filtered out because, say, for example, you have 10,000 impressions on an ad campaign, out of which maybe 500 people will actually click the ad, right? So it becomes smaller. And out of those 500 people who have clicked the ad, and if you're a D2C company, maybe 300 people, 350 people looked at a product and added something to cart. But a lot of times it just happens, we add something to a cart, but then we have a change of heart. We think money is more important, so we don't buy it. So out of that 350, you'll probably have about 100 people who actually do checkout. Then out of that 100 people, maybe there are 10 cancellations which have happened, or returns which have happened. So only 90 people have actually purchased the product that you were selling, right? Whereas the impressions, like I said, could have been 10,000.
Right.
So that's what the funnel is, where it just keeps cascading down to the smallest number. But all of these parameters are important, right? Because the wider your mouth of the funnel, the better it is going to be at the bottom, right? So for example, if I multiply 10,000 with 10x, then I can proportionately expect and estimate that the people who are going to be buying the product could now be about 900, right? Who have successfully purchased and kept the product with them. So that's kind of how marketing works. So the bigger you want your funnel to be, the more you'll have to invest. So the cost per action could be as less as maybe 50 rupees, right? If you're just asking for a click, to as much as thousands of rupees, right? Because if you're in
Depends on what the action is.
Depends on what the action and depends on how competitive your field is, right? Because all of this works on the basis of bidding. So we call this bidding, which is that you have to place bids for an ad that, okay, for every click, I am ready to pay 100 rupees. Your competitor, who's probably well funded, is ready to pay 200 rupees. And Google only has so much space, right? Or Facebook, Instagram, they only have so much space to showcase advertising, because if they fill everything up with ads, then people are not going to come to their platforms. So what they'll do is they'll prefer to serve the 200 rupee ad first, because that company is ready to pay more,
right,
for the same kind of ad placement.
Ultimately, they are also running a business.
Exactly, right? So it depends on how competitive, it depends on what is the action, and it also depends the kind of budgets that you have, right? Because to Google also, if you're saying that even though my cost per action is maybe 100 rupees, I'm ready to invest 10 lakh rupees. So Google is then incentivized, the algorithm is then incentivized to also place your ads along with the placement, because with the other person, because their per action cost is so high, it is possible that their overall budget is lower. So there's a multitude of factors, and the algorithm keeps changing, because obviously these companies are tech driven, they keep optimizing their billings every now and then. So it depends on what it is like that, but it's a thing that you have to test and discover. So you publish an ad campaign with the smallest amount of money that one can invest, you put it in, see the response that you get out of it, figure out what's working, figure out what's not working, then optimize it, and then publish the ad again, so on and so forth.
Let's make it light and low. How will you be designing a brand for a local for vocal kirana store?
So, like I was saying initially, right, branding is not about creating something extremely sophisticated all the time. It's about having to connect with, the target audience, which are actually around you, who are going to be becoming your paying customers. So, a store which has to be positioned as a, vocal for local kind of a setup where they want to welcome people, around them. So naturally, the branding has to accommodate the fact that there could be a lot of vernacular languages being spoken. So it's not really the best idea to make everything anglicized and everything is just like in pure English with extremely complex vocabulary. Where you have to write something in Hindi, वो हिंदी में लिखा जाना चाहिए. अगर वो तेलुगु में लिखा जाना चाहिए, तो it has to be written in Telugu, so that if the people around you understand you, that's when they're gonna walk in. Otherwise, they'll be like, I don't even know what's written. So why should I go there, right? So that is one core insight. I think another thing is just to understand that, of course, the logo should be nice and there should be a signage and all that. But how does the shopkeeper or the person running the shop interact with you, right? Are they nice to you? Do they give you options? So, for example, why we like going to a supermarket is because we have the opportunity to explore multiple things within a same product category and pick up the one that we like the most. So at a store, at a kirana store, typically the shelves are behind the shopkeeper, so you don't have direct access to it. So you have to ask them for something. So how do they interact with you? So maybe you say that I want a Maggi noodles, right? And maybe they come back to you with a recommendation that actually there is a new brand which has come in. It's maybe cheaper, or I've heard from my customers that it's tastier, and there is a discount that I'm running right now. So why don't you try that? So that is another experience that will make it feel like a vocal for local store, because you have a direct connection with the shopkeeper who's giving you recommendations, and trying to make you explore and show you what are the different options that you have available. Besides that, in terms of the kind of system that they have, do they have digital payments enabled, right? Because today, at least in the urban population, most of us rely on UPI transfers or card payments. Do they accept that? And in terms of other support, maybe do they home deliver? The kind of bags that they give their products in, is it durable? Do they give you a discount if you bring your own bag? So all of these different small aspects of it, because branding goes much beyond just creating a logo. A logo is not a brand. A logo is simply an identifier of a brand. What are these other things, ancillary aspects of the emotional recall of that particular organization, company, shop that you think about? That is what will make somebody want to come back for the next time. That even though there is maybe a popular supermarket open next door, they will still want to come here and support the small guy, because they believe that they're still getting the same things that they need. They're probably even getting a good rate. Of course, it's very difficult for a smaller shopkeeper to compete with the likes of a DMart, right? Because they purchase in such giant numbers that they can give an excellent discount. But somewhere I think people are also ready to forego that discount as long as the experience is good. So where the shopkeeper cannot compete on prices, they can definitely compete on the experience that they offer. Because at a DMart, right, the founder of DMart or the board of directors is not going to be there to give a personal experience, and the people on the floor there are at the end of the day just doing their job. And retail is a very, very tough space to be in. So they may be frustrated, they're out of patience, they're busy with something, they have a lot of targets to meet. So the shopkeeper can really make the difference by having a conversation. If somebody is an expectant mother, just asking them about how everything is, are they okay, will really make that customer feel very, very valued, right? And they would just say like, actually I feel safer and more valued at this smaller shop, which is probably just as big as this room, instead of a giant large format box retail shop like a store like a DMart, right? So those are the aspects of branding which I think don't really need you know a proper agency, but just needs the awareness and the intent of the founder, that I have to ensure a good experience should be offered. And then at, of course, some point you'll have to hire an expert to build on that kind of experience that you've created, so that it can be scalable. Maybe you're setting up another branch of yours in a different part of the city, you can't be there at both places. So how do you ensure that that same experience is being given to the customers by your staff, right, or by a co-founder which joins in for the next shop? So that scalability is something that an expert definitely creates. Of course, if you're a slightly bigger business, then you can even bring in an expert to even curate that entire experience from the get-go. But if you don't have that kind of budgets available, I think just being aware of customer service and ensuring that one leaves with a good taste. I mean, it's obviously possible that you make mistakes. It's obviously possible that customers are not satisfied. But just taking responsibility and cutting your losses and just saying that, what, actually, I don't think this is good enough. Give us some time, we'll come back to you with something better. But for the time being, let's just maybe part ways, right? Those are some things that, I think any business entity can do to really create an impression, even if it is false, but just to create an impression that they care, right? And not to say that being dishonest is a good thing, but I'm just saying that's exactly what branding is. It's to create a perception that everything is great, that everything is of good quality,
and it becomes a responsibility of the business to make that impression.
Make that real, right? So that's what a brand consultant does. They create that facade, and then the business has to work really hard to make that facade into something that is actually real.
Nice. So far, like, you have been working since 2018 on this. So far, who has been your worst client and your best client?
I don't think
Any crazy experiences in?
I think we have a lot of experiences on a daily basis today. We're a team of about 28 people, and I wouldn't claim to know everything that goes on a personal level, because we have some really really talented people who are managing project accounts by themselves. And I think every day is a learning experience for all of us, at Grabday. And of course, we've had a fair share of experiences where we have been disappointed with client partners, and where we have also potentially disappointed client partners as well. But I think what is important for us is to build on those relationships which we're trying to set up, and try to make every single client partner of ours satisfied with the work that we do for them, and have us satisfied with the kind of compensations that we receive from them. And all in all, be very very excited whenever there is recognition that comes from their customers, right? When their customers says to them that, what, I actually like the kind of brand experience that you're offering to me, they immediately think about us, and they're grateful that they partnered with an agency like us to curate that brand experience, because they probably could not have done it themselves, because of course they're busy with more important operations. So I don't think I have an answer to who our worst client has. Maybe forget that at the other side there are also human beings, right? Where we're not a computer driven, machine driven kind of a setup. We're all people driven, right?
Tell me an instance.
So, just for example, a small goof up happens, right? I'm not saying mistakes are condoned to be condoned. They're definitely something that should be flagged, but it's really about how you bring them up. I think that makes all of the difference, right? Because if say I were to make a mistake and you tell me that, listen, you've made a mistake, and I'm pointing it out to you, and I don't expect mistakes from you, because you're an expert team, and this is not supposed to happen. But yeah, you've made a mistake. Can you please do whatever needs to be done to fix it? So when you say it like that, I immediately, I'm not saying that the goal is to feel guilty that I did it. You reposed so much faith in me and my team members, and this ended up happening. So I think the way to bring it up is something that I feel like sometimes, of course, maybe they're having a bad day at their end, and therefore they bring it up in a very harsh manner. Because we also have like a lot of freshers on our team, people who've just started working, and a critical thought not presented appropriately can do a lot of damage to somebody's well-being at work, right? So I think those are some experiences that we're typically averse to, and we really value building a good enough, a supportive work culture for our team members as well, so that they enjoy coming back to work every day and don't dread it. And we similarly obviously want our client partners to also feel like they can blindly trust us with whatever we give to them. And of course, when we don't meet that expectation, they are more than welcome and obviously encouraged to bring it up with us. But yes, of course, I'd love it if they bring it more appropriately, softly. Of course, we do it 3 times, and by all means be angry. But I think there is a way to escalate it. It's not to jump from like level 1 to 100 all at once. It has to be taken slowly, because at the end of the day, you're interacting with people, right? And it's a people-driven business. You have to know that people are sensitive, people have emotions, and there's just a certain way to conduct oneself. Yeah.